Hey everyone, it's Mr. Sutter coming at you with a practiced topic question from AP Classroom. Specifically, it's from topic 6.3, I believe, where we're going to go through a one-dimensional array and use an enhanced for loop to do something. So just to give you a flavor of what the AP exam could ask you. Okay, so first things first, we need to remember that we're going to use Java, obviously, so that's the standard text they're going to have. In this case, what we want to do is we want to basically use some sort of method they call a div by sum, where we're going to go ahead and do one of two things. The first thing we want to do is when I call that method, we're going to use an array name called ARR, and that's going to be a sample of what the array could look like. And we're going to use a secondary number here to tell what it can be divisible by. So essentially, we need to focus on two things for this. And you could take a look and read it yourself when you pause the video. But essentially, if you look at when we call the method div by sum, it's going to take in whatever that array is. And the second number is the important one. That's going to be, is it divisible by that number 3 or is it not? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each element here and ask the question, is this going to divide by 3? No. Can this divide by 3 cleanly? No. Does 3 divide by 3 cleanly? Yes. 6, is that divisible by 3? Absolutely. 2, no. 9, yes. Any numbers that are divisible by 3 and is clean is what we're going to use to then add them all up. And then 3 plus 6 plus 9 is going to give you 18. That's how they're getting you to these two. Same thing when we do the division by 5. So all of that's kind of shown to you as an example. Okay, so when we look at this, essentially what we need to do is we need to understand, I try to write these in the comments just to speed the video up, is we identify which numbers in that array are divisible by that parameter of num. Okay, so if it is divisible, then what I want to do is go ahead and total all of those specific numbers. Oh, and there's a plot twist. We need to use the enhanced for loop as it says here in the prompt for full credit. Oh, how annoying is that? So here's how I'm thinking about tackling this. Again, I kind of broke it out in these comments of two things. One, I need to first identify which of those numbers are divisible by whatever the number is. Then I can go ahead and total those specific numbers that are divisible. And I have to use the enhanced for loop. So let's go ahead and get started and just start coding. And what I want to encourage people to do is just go ahead and start coding and see like which pieces do I need to miss. Sometimes you might need to use English to just words just to say, hey, I'm going to put this in here as a placeholder, and that's fine. Okay. The idea is you need to, if you don't have a strategy or a way of coming up with that specific output, you're not going to be able to code it anyway. So you might as well try. So, and I try to put those in the comments, and here we go. So remember, to use an enhanced for loop, we're going to go ahead and use some sort of data type and an array name. And these have to, with a colon, have to match the existing array. So what we're basically doing, as best as I can understand it, is we're going to go ahead and say, hey, for each element of the existing array, which coincidentally is called just ARR, right? And the College Board loves to use that. We're going to go ahead and copy each of those elements over to this other array. Because I know I cannot modify the existing array, well, I am able to mess around with a copy of an array. So this is going to follow the same array data type as you saw up here. It's an int, right? It tells you that in the prompt. And then the array name, you can call it whatever you want. Copy, we call it ARR, maybe just do new ARR. It doesn't really matter what that is. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start that enhanced for loop. So that's really it, right? So it's super efficient code, which is great. But this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So at this point, I'm able to access each element individually. But I need to ask the question, hey, is this divisible by the number they're feeding me? So I know that one of the parameters is that int num, right? So what that means is I need to evaluate, is that current number, say 4, that first element, is that divisible by 3 or is it not? If it is divisible by 3, so if it is divisible, then I want you to keep it. If not, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to go ahead and change it to 0. Okay, that's kind of what I am thinking. So if it is divisible, keep the number in the array. Remember, we're making a copy, so I can modify that copy however I want. I can't change the length of the array, though. So, for example, I'm looking at the number 4. That is not divisible by 3. Okay, so if it divides by 3, we're going to have a remainder. So in that case, what if I could just change that to be a 0? Then when I go through and add up all these numbers, I don't have to worry about like what the number is going to be, right? So let's keep going then. Now with this thought, I'm going to go ahead and delete this comment so I can actually type this out. So I'm going to bring down an if statement and say, hey, if that number for new array, right, is divisible by whatever the number is and is equal to 0, then I want it to do something. So let me go over that again. So the name of my new array is new array. That's my copy, and I just put too many letters there. Okay. If that, and this is the mod operator. So remember, whenever you use the mod operator, it's asking the question, hey, or it's asking what is this number, say the number 4, divided by, let's say the incoming number is 3. So what is the remainder after you divide 4 by 3? The answer is 1. Okay. So in this case, we can't have that. But what I can say is, hey, if you divide the two numbers and they result in a remainder of 0, then let's go ahead and run this next part. So if that number is divisible by 0, we have one of two choices. We could either just go ahead and add up all the numbers that are. Maybe I put this in a new array. Maybe I go ahead and add this into it. So let's try that. So there's two ways I can think about it. One, I can change the number to be 0 in the new array. Okay, so how would you do that? You could do new array equals, if it's not able to do that, my bad. So here's what I'm going to do. If the new array new array, that number for the element, mod number is 0, then I want it to basically do nothing. But in this case, why don't we go with a scenario where this number, the remainder, is greater than 0, right? Which is possible, which is going to be the case. So if it's some other number than 0, then I know the numbers don't cleanly divide, or they're not divisible. So what I'm going to do is, in this case, why don't we go ahead and change whatever that number is to be equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and modify within the copy the value of the element to 0. Okay, so again, I can do this because I'm using enhanced for loop to make a copy. All right, so if that's the case, so if we were doing a regular for loop, I would just say new ARR bracket index equals 0 and just change it that way. So this is just a little bit more efficient. Okay, so now what I've done in this enhanced for loop is I have gone ahead and I have modified those numbers. While I'm at it though, so now it's going to go ahead and change it, right? So once I change that number, one other thing I'm going to go ahead and do, and I kind of jumped the gun there, is I'm going to go ahead and add a case where we're going to, we need to close out that if statement, silly me. Okay, so we're going to close out that if statement, but within the for loop, what I want to do is I want to find some sort of total and set it equal to the value of total, right, plus whatever this new array number is, right? So it's going to start the running total. And remember, there's a more efficient way to write this code if you want. So you could just do plus equals. And that'll do the same thing. So it's going to keep that running total. So I'm going to access one element at a time. Is it divisible, or is it going to leave a remainder greater than 0? Yes. Go ahead and change that element value to be 0. Okay, when I'm done running that if statement, if I need to basically clean the data, then I'm going to go ahead and add that number to my total. Now I can keep going, right? So now we've finished up the for loop, and that'll do it. That'll just add the total. And that should be it. I don't need to do any sort of average, any sort of further division. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Hope this helps, and you guys can let me know if you have questions.